He'll like he's going to back in style. The facet, let's rock. David Lynch and Mark Frost's show turned out to be a pretty good success, taking home several nominations from the Emmys, and it was a sure sign that there was going to be a second season. Seeing as the first season ended on a cliffhanger, the second season would address these things and would hopefully solve the crime of who killed Laura Palmer. Or that's what people expected. Now, Season 2 is a dropping off point for some people. Season 2 is very, very good, but at the time it had some problems when it came to viewership. A lot of people began to fall out during the second season. Perhaps it was because the show just was dragging on for them. Not at all concerned with who killed Laura Palmer. It was trying to be as slow as possible. And that's what the first episode does. David Lynch takes the helm of the first episode of the second season, and it's much slower paced than the first season. It tries to be very slow, and basically, I think David Lynch was trying to get at that the show was moving too fast, and he had to slow things down. But that does lead to some problems later on. Because the show goes in a different direction than the first season. The first season was very much like a cop drama with some soap opera material as well, with all the different people in the town. But this time around, Mark Frost and David Lynch do something a little different. They get into some supernatural territory, and it might turn off some people who were interested in this weird world, or it might enhance it for some. For me, it enhances it. What David Lynch and Mark Frost have created is a world very unique and very strange, and I think the supernatural elements actually work very well together. Because if you look back at the first season, I don't think the first season is without some supernaturalness to it. Now, it's downplayed a lot, but it's always there. There's something just off about it, and to me, that's supernatural. And the second season has a big problem. Not even halfway through the season, which consists of 22 episodes, the first season being 8. This time around, ABC pressured David Lynch and Mark Frost into showing who the killer was. And this is the show's greatest strength and biggest downfall. Because, as I said in the first video, David Lynch and Mark Frost had no desire to solve the mystery. It was supposed to be a jumping off point for other stories. And it was basically the glue that held everything together. But solving it so early in the season, they gave up. And in doing so, the episode that reveals Laura Palmer's killer is one of the best episodes of the show, and one of my favorite episodes, period. It's very good, and the twist at the end is just fantastic. I won't say it here. I'll probably end up having to say it at some time, but I won't say it here. It's just very, very unsettling and gives one of the greatest moments in television. However, at this point, David Lynch leaves the show, and 2 episodes later, Mark Frost leaves the show, which leaves the show in kind of a predicament. They don't have their head guys, and the show must go on, and this is where the problems of the season arise. I love the first 9 episodes of Season 2, but the jumping off point for the show and for a lot of people is the next episodes that follow, which are written by people that have worked on the show, but the problem is they don't know where to go. The Laura Palmer case is solved, and they just don't know what to do with these characters, and that's a big problem because it was so integral with the show. Because We get weird things, like we get new characters, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And then we get new subplots with characters, and they're just awful. James Hurley's plot in particular is just horrid and has nothing to do with the rest of Twin Peaks itself. That was the thing with the first season and the first half of the second season, is everything felt connected. There was these scenes that maybe didn't completely relate to the Laura Palmer mystery, but everything felt connected. Every character felt intertwined with each other, and now they're separate on their separate plots, and it's just not as cohesive as the first season, which is a real shame. But there are some sweet spots in the middle. It's just very hard to find, and most of the episodes are very bland and just not that good. They're not terrible, but it's far from what the show originally was. But there is a happy ending to this for the most part. Near the very end of the season, David Lynch and Mark Frost come back, and the show introduces something different and interesting and builds on the mythology of the show. They introduce the White and Black Lodge. Now, this is where it's a little confusing. Twin Peaks at this point has become very supernatural, and there's beings such as a giant, a little man. At the intro of this video, you can see that I was talking backwards. Well, this is something that is utilized a lot in the show. And basically, there's these people from some sort of alternate dimension or other world. It's very supernatural and very hard and confusing, but stay with me. Basically, there's this darkness that's in the woods that comes from this thing called the Black Lodge, and the characters have to deal with this other world in certain ways. Also, the show brings in just a breath of fresh air after the slog in the middle half of the season. Basically, we get a new antagonist in a character called Wyndham Earle, who has a past with our main character, Agent Cooper. Agent Cooper slept with this man's wife, who he worked with, and basically Wyndham Earle went crazy and killed her and went into some sort of insane asylum, and now he's escaped and he's out to hunt Cooper. But also, he's out to learn the secrets of the Black Lodge. Twin Peaks is a show of mysteries, and sometimes they solve the mysteries and sometimes they don't. The Black Lodge is still something that hasn't fully been solved, and I don't think ever will. It's just very weird and it's hard to understand, and I think that's what's so cool about it, is there's so many theories that people can have about this world, and I think that's really cool. So basically, the show hits its stride again in the last 6 episodes, and basically at the very end, the final episode is one of the best things I think David Lynch has ever done. This is a very fun episode that harkens back to the finale of the first season in certain ways, with many cliffhangers, with many characters just left hanging, and it's very suspenseful, and also it has one of the best sequences I've ever seen in television, where Agent Cooper finally enters this supernatural world of the Black Lodge, and we get one of the best sequences ever that lasts for 15 minutes. It's one scene, and it goes on for that entire amount of time, and it's just really fun, where we get callbacks to the first season, and it's just so much fun. And not only that, after the fact, after this long sequence, we finally get one of the scariest and most profound and haunting images ever put on TV, maybe even film. The show ends with one of the best cliffhangers I've ever seen, where we do not know the fate of Agent Cooper. and it's a very dark turn for the series. I won't say anything here, but it's just very, very haunting, and I love it. It's a great final image. And it's sad that this was such a good episode, and Twin Peaks finally had its footing again. But sadly, the ratings were plummeting, and there was no season 3 of Twin Peaks, which was a real shame because this was a very good show, very influential. As I've said in the previous video, this show basically helped in creating other such shows, such as The X-Files and Lost, and basically modern television. So it's really sad that it didn't last very long, but what it did was really amazing, and I don't think any show has really matched it. I don't think any show has been able to match comedy, drama, and horror, among other things, all together in one package so well. It just all works together, and even though the middle of the season does have some problems, it's still a really, really fun season, and as I said, the first part is great, and the last part is great. It's just that middle that's just has a lot of problems with it, but you can find some gems in it. That said, Twin Peaks didn't end when season 2 ended. But in 1992, David Lynch continued on with his film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. Now, instead of being a sequel to the series, David Lynch did something that no one expected, and particularly nobody wanted. He went backwards in time, resetting the clock and giving us a prequel, which was very controversial and still is to this day. Some people love it and some people hate it, but that's a review for another time. Anyway, guys, season 2 of Twin Peaks has its rough spots, but is still really good and captures the spirit that the first season had. And even though season 2 has some problems, it makes up for it with some great performances and great sequences and just a whole lot of fun. The show's just a whole lot of fun to watch, and that's all I really wanted. Even though with the problems it has, I still love the show, and although it's not as good as the first season, it's still a great piece of television, and still continues to be one of my favorite shows ever. So, with all that said, Twin Peaks Season 2 gets an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Look for my Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me review coming soon, perhaps the next day from now. So anyway, guys, with all that said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.